This is Find Your Dream Job, the podcast that helps you get hired, have the career you want, and make a difference in life. I'm Mac Pritchard, your host and publisher of Mac's List. I'm joined by my co-hosts, Ben Forstag, our managing director, and Jenna Forstrom, our community manager. This week, we're talking about how you can use Twitter to find jobs and recruiters. Our show is brought to you by Hack the Hidden Job Market, the new online course from Mac's List that starts November 1st. As many as 8 out of 10 job openings never get advertised. Is your dream job one of them? Learn how to uncover hidden jobs and get noticed by the hiring managers who fill them. Visit maxlist.org/course. Social platforms like Twitter can let you learn from and help others and establish yourself as an expert in your field too. And you can find jobs on Twitter, lots and lots of jobs. You can also meet and get to know the headhunters who fill them. This week on Find Your Dream Job, we're talking about how you can use Twitter to find jobs and recruiters. Later in the show, I talked to this week's guest expert, Chris Russell. He explains how you can uncover jobs on Twitter. He also tells you how you can find recruiters there and why you need to connect with them. Speaking of recruiters, Ben Forstag has found a survey you'll want to read. It asks headhunters annually about hiring trends and what they want to see in candidates. Ben will tell us more in a moment. This week, our listener question comes from Sierra Weingarner. She was at our recent Career Pathways to Doing Good event. And Sierra wonders if it's okay to have a resume longer than one page. Jenna Forstrom, our community manager, has her advice. But first, as always, let's check in with the Mac's List team. So, Jenna, Ben, how are you two doing this week?
Doing great, Mac.
Doing swell.
Yeah, so you're just back from a weekend in California.
Yes.
Yeah, so nice break.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was warm. Came back to rainy Portland. I kind of want to go back.
Yeah, and Ben, you had a ribbon-cutting ceremony for your new playhouse, which I understand is like an ADU for your kids.
Yeah, about 2 months ago, my wife and I had this thought, let's build a simple playhouse for our kids. And 2 months later, with 4 new additions on up and a third mortgage on our house, we finished the playhouse. So it's
coming soon to the cover of Architectural Digest.
Yes.
All right. Well, listeners will want to keep an eye out for that. But today we're talking about Twitter. So I'm curious, when you think about Twitter, what's your favorite Twitter job search hack?
My go-to Twitter hack is to always be helpful. So if there's someone who I'm interested in connecting with, if they're an influencer, so I think about like Gary Vee or Chris Gillibo or something, and they post that they're having an issue, I try to reference like some sort of solution, and then that kind of kicks off a conversation. So you get noticed for being helpful, and then you kind of can just build on that. And so then you can send them a private message or direct message is what it's called on Twitter, and kind of just gain a connection that way. And so it puts a name and a photo to a Twitter handle.
All right. So be helpful to others and keep an eye on your feed to look for those opportunities.
Yep.
How about you, Ben?
So I think I've got 2. One is just remembering that Twitter exists, because I'm a very sporadic Twitter user. I'll go and tweet a lot for 2 weeks and then kind of forget about it for a couple of weeks after that. The other one I think that's important, and this applies to all social media, is just remembering that it's a two-way conversation, and that I think too often people on Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn, they write something and push it in one direction, and they never respond to anything else what other people write. And I think you need to remember other people are sharing their ideas and their thoughts, and you need to both respond to them and generate your own content.
Yeah, so keep it social because it is social media. My favorite hack is when I go to an event regularly, say sponsored by a local chapter of a professional group or a big annual conference, I create a public Twitter list for that event, and I add the names of the people who tweet there, and then I continue to look at that list during long after the conference is over, and And I find it a great way, to Jenna's point, of building online relationships with folks because I'll retweet their stuff, or they may pose a question, as Jenna mentioned. Some people do on Twitter, and so there's having a public Twitter list like that is a way of continuing both the conversation and strengthening a relationship after you meet someone at a networking event. All right. Well, good advice from you both. And let's turn to you, Ben, because every week you're out there searching the nooks and the crannies of the internet, looking for books, websites, tools, and other helpful things that people can use in job searches. What have you found for our listeners this week?
So this week I want to share this really cool resource that I found. It's the Jobvite Recruiter Nation Report from 2016, the annual social recruiting survey. So that's a pretty long title, and it sounds like a boring thing, but it's actually really interesting, especially if you like numbers and data and infographics and things like that. So,
and I think listeners know you love data.
I do love data.
Not just baseball stats.
I do. And so Jobvite is this job board, but every year they go out and survey hiring managers and recruiters from around the country. And this year the report is the response from 1,600 different recruiters, and it includes all kinds of information about what recruiters and hiring companies are looking for. So this includes like general hiring trends. For example, 69% of all the recruiters reported that their companies are looking to hire this year. That's a great sign for the economy, for people looking for a job, right? But it also includes information like how they find candidates, what they're looking for in candidates, online red flags, like when they see certain things online, what makes them back away from thinking about a candidate. The report also includes some tips for job seekers themselves about how you can best interact with a recruiter. So the one thing I really liked the most was how employers find candidates, and there's a lot of good information about how they use social media, particularly LinkedIn, but also Twitter, Facebook, and even Instagram and Snapchat. It's amazing that there are all these different avenues for finding talent, and recruiters are using them all. And this report gives job seekers some perspective about, what are the most fruitful avenues if you're trying to go out there and get a recruiter's attention, and what are the things you definitely don't want to be doing on social media if you're looking for a job.
So we know what people shouldn't do, Ben, on social media. What was there one thing that stood out as you read the report about ways people can connect with recruiters? Because I think you've had this experience too, and Jenna as well. Often I meet people who think, it's hard to get in front of a recruiter. It's hard to get their attention or build a relationship. What was the top tip that you took away from the report about how to do that?
Well, I think there's two. One is that you want to be pushing out relevant content about yourself and about your industry or what you're good at. You need to show that this is something that matters to you and that you're keeping up to date with the relevant trends in your industry. The other one that they point out here is that spelling is huge, and frequent typos and grammar mistakes. It's something like 72% of all recruiters say that that's a big red flag for them. So write about stuff that's relevant to your industry, write about stuff that's relevant to your professional interests, and when you write about it well.
So our high school English teachers were right. Spelling and grammar do matter.
That's right.
Okay. Well, thank you, Ben. If you've got a suggestion for Ben, please write him, and we may share your idea on the show. Ben's email address is easy to remember. It's ben@maxlist.org. Now let's turn to you, our listeners, and Jenna is here to answer one of your questions. What's in the MaxList mailbag this week, Jenna?
Today's question comes from Sierra Weingartner, who was at our recent Career Pathways to Doing Good event, and here is her question.
Hi, my name is Sierra, and I am curious if having a resume longer than one page is a problem. If so, why?
One of my first episodes here at MaxList on this podcast, we talked about the difference between a CV and a resume. And to recap, we'll include this in the show notes, but to recap, a resume is roughly 1 to 2 pages, and a CV is everything in your entire professional career. So it could be 10 to 15, and I think Ben said he saw an 18-page CV in that podcast. But here are some reasons why you might have a 1-page resume. And for obvious reasons, I'm on team 1-page resume, and some other people here at MaxList aren't. But these are the reasons why I think you should have a 1-page. One, it's really easy to, if a recruiter is getting 50 resumes and the job says 1-page resumes, to cut people that have gone over that I think the ability to clearly and concisely give information about yourself to one page is a skill that attracts hiring managers and recruiters. And culturally, I just think we're one-page people. So those are my reasons why you should have one page.
So I think, Ben, you might have a different view.
This feels like crossfire right now, and I really like it. So in the field of career coaches and career management advice people, there's this great schism. And I think the one-page or two-page resume is the fault line where the two sides fight all the time. And I am definitely on the side of it is okay to have a two-page resume. Now, I'll put some caveats there. Clearly, if the job description says send a one-page resume, make sure your resume is only one page. However, short of that explicit instruction, I just can't envision a situation in which a recruiter would see a resume and say, this person is absolutely perfect. They're exactly what I'm looking for, but their resume is 2 pages long. I'm sorry, we're going to toss it into the reject pile. I think the key here is not even focusing on length, it's focusing on relevancy, right? So if you have 2 pages of relevant work history and you can articulate 2 pages full of accomplishments that you've made that speak to the challenges and the problems that the employer has, then by all means include 2 pages of information. If you only have 1 page of relevant information, relevant work history, and articulated accomplishments that speak to the needs of the employer, then you only include 1 page. But I wouldn't get too caught up in the 1 page versus 2 page schism.
Okay, I'm going to sound kind of muddled here, but I've actually got a foot in both camps. I think early in your career, particularly in the first 5 to 10 years, you should go with 1 page because you don't have that much professional experience at that point to talk about, though it can be very impressive. It can be summarized, I think, in 1 page. Later in your career, after 15, 20 years, you probably need that 2nd page. Particularly if you've switched sectors and want to tell that story. So I think the main point for me is I see people struggle with this, and I would encourage you to make a choice and then just go with it. Don't get stuck worrying about whether 1 versus 2 pages matters. It's important. And to Jenna, to your point, I think if somebody asks for 1 page, yeah, absolutely. No matter how long you've been in the workforce, follow the application instructions. Otherwise, you risk ending up in the rejection pile, basically for a technicality.
And I'm just going to go back to my point about relevance. I see a lot of resumes, and I think people spend a lot of time and space including things that are not really relevant to their job search or, frankly, really any job search. So, listing all of your extracurricular activities from college, like you can cut that. Listing your favorite hobbies, that's a nice thing for kind of cultural fit, but you can probably cut that too. I think the key is focus on relevancy, particularly relevancy for the specific job you're applying to.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Okay, a lot of energy around that question. Thanks, Sierra, for calling it in. And thank you, Jenna. And if you've got a question for us, please email Jenna. Her email address is easy to remember, too. It's jenna@maxlist.org. Or call our listener line. That number is area code 716-JOB-TALK. That's 716-JOB-TALK. These segments with Ben and Jenna are sponsored by Hack the Hidden Job Market. It's the new online course from MaxList. As many as 80% of all jobs never get posted. Instead, employers fill these openings by word of mouth. Our new course shows you how this hidden job market works. We'll teach you how to find plum gigs that never appear on a job board, how to stand out online in a crowd of applicants, and how to connect with insiders who can help your career. In each of the course's 12 modules, you get the tools and tips you need to get the work you want. Meaningful work, work that makes a difference, work that you can love. Hack the Hidden Job Market launches November 1st. But don't wait. Get updates and lock in the early bird price now. Go to maxlist.org/course. Now let's turn to this week's guest expert, Chris Russell. Chris Russell is the founder of CareerCloud.com. Widely considered to be the mad scientist of online recruiting, Chris has been connecting job seekers to employers since 1999. When he's not running Career Cloud, you can find Chris on his kayak or biking his local rail trails. He joins us today from Trumbull, Connecticut. Chris, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, Mac, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you here. Our topic today is how to use Twitter not only to find jobs, but connect with recruiters as well. Let's start with the basics. How can people use Twitter in a simple job search?
Well, I think the best way to look at Twitter is as a kind of a real-time job search engine, if you will. There are thousands of jobs being shared on Twitter every day. And so if you know how to look for them, you can certainly find them. And it also helps you connect with, in many cases, sometimes an actual person behind the job posting it. So it's essentially a job search engine, if you will.
So that's a big haystack out there in the Twitter world, if you think about it visually. And of course, we're, as job seekers, we're looking for specific opportunities. How can people find the needle they're searching for? How can they narrow their search? What are some tactical tips you might have, Chris?
Yeah, so the best way is through keywords and hashtags. So if you're, for example, looking for, a marketing job in, let's say, Hartford, Connecticut, so I would type in the phrase marketing #job Hartford in the upper right search box, for example. And then once you do that search, just click on the live tab and you'll see all the latest tweets according to date. And from there, you can kind of go through them and see what's available. There's a number of both job boards, employers, and kind of individual recruiters posting jobs on Twitter every day. Some of them kind of automatic stuff that come out from their databases. Some of them are, live tweeting them, but they're out there. And by simple keyword searches and using hashtags, particularly the word #job or #hiring, along with your other keywords, you can really you can find those jobs pretty easily.
Now, I know you're on Twitter a lot, as am I, but we were all Twitter newbies once, Chris. For the benefit of listeners who might not have tried Twitter yet, tell us what a hashtag is and why it matters.
Hashtag is just a way to filter out certain keywords. So it's essentially just a keyword in disguise, and you'll see a little pound sign before the word. That means it's a hashtag. And the difference on Twitter between that and a regular keyword is that it's clickable. So when you hashtag something on a tweet, and then that tweet is then published, whenever you click on that hashtag, it'll show all the other hashtags that other people have put on there using that same phrase or keyword. So it's a way to kind of filter out just those words. So with #jobs, for example, when you click on that hashtag in a tweet, you'll see the other ones that other tweets that people have put out there with that exact same hashtag.
So you mentioned the hashtag for jobs. What are say 5 or 10 of the most popular hashtags that people should look at, even if they're focusing on one sector, but they want to make what should be on their hashtag list? Probably
jobs or job. Hiring, definitely. I've seen we're hiring as well in some people's tweets. Maybe careers or career. Job alert is another one I've seen. So those are some you can look out for. So by taking those and adding your particular keywords, marketing, software, whatever industry you're in, you can then kind of find those types of jobs across the Twitter sphere.
And as you do this research, I know Twitter allows you to save your searches. Tell us how people can do that, how they can save their search, and why they should do it.
Yeah, saving your search is essentially like saving a job alert. So if you get job alerts by email, you can kind of do the same thing within Twitter. Once you do a search under the more options label on your Twitter menu, you'll see save as a search, and you can then name it. So you can kind of create searches for all the different hashtags I mentioned and all the different keywords you want, and create a giant list of those searches for later use. So I would go back to that, once every couple of days or once a week to see what's new in the Twitter sphere as far as jobs go. So it's a great way to kind of just save time in future searches and keep it stored for future use to keep up to date on jobs.
So those are the basics, Chris. Let's talk about recruiters. Why do you recommend that people look for recruiters on Twitter and connect with them?
Well, I think in many cases, it gives you kind of a one-to-one channel with that recruiter. Whereas if you're searching the company website, you have no idea how to connect with that person. But if they're on Twitter, there's your in. There's a way for you to get into the company and get noticed. And that's kind of one of the biggest challenges today in job searching is getting noticed, right? So if you can find a company on Twitter or somebody at the company who's on Twitter, who's identified that in their profile, you can then reach out to them and ask them questions about working there, or try to get an update on your resume that you submitted. It's really a real-time communication channel if you can find somebody who's on Twitter there at the company.
So let's talk about how you can find people. What have you seen work successfully for job seekers when they're trying to identify a recruiter either at a company or perhaps in their field? They're looking for a headhunter in, say, marketing or software.
Yeah, let's start with the company first. So if there's a company you want to work at, just go on to Twitter and do a keyword search on that company. You should be able to find it pretty easily. Recruiter-wise, you can go into the advanced search on Twitter, and under there's some different places there to put your keywords. So under any of these words, I might put in, recruiter, HR, talent, human resources, and then choose a location for that area. And when you do the search, you'll come up with a number of people who fit that criteria, and that's going to search their bios essentially. By doing that, you come across other recruiters that you can follow and connect with them through a nice keyword search there.
So you've built a short list of recruiters that say your target companies, or you found the 3 to 5 people in your geographic area who are the headhunters in your field. Chris, what's your best advice about how to, once you connect with them, build a relationship? Because I can imagine, as with any search, you don't want to be reaching out to the HR department or a recruiter after you've applied for a job. You want to do that ahead of time.
Right. I'd say the first thing to do is just listen. You want to follow them, obviously, see what they're tweeting about on a daily basis. Maybe start retweeting some of their more interesting posts. Maybe start, favoriting some of them. And that's going to kind of get you on their radar a little bit without actually having to contact them. They're going to see that, oh, hey, this person retweeted my job listing or some news about the company I work for, or they'll see that favorite notice in their Twitter notifications. That's the first thing. Just get on their radar. So don't ask for a job right away or try and talk to them. Just kind of start building that relationship, right? Get on their radars overall. Once you start doing that after a week or two, then you can start kind of interacting with them. So, if they post a job that you're interested in, you could just reply to that tweet and saying, hey, what's the best way to apply? Or what advice do you have when applying to your company? I really love to work there. Just start a very simple dialogue with them through a simple tweet, and that should get the ball rolling for you. The base, have common sense. It's a lot of people get scared of, trying to contact somebody like this on Twitter for a job, but just have common sense, be nice, and you'll do just fine.
As you talk, I'm reminded that many job seekers are often looking for some kind of backdoor into HR or into a headhunter's office, and they get frustrated because they only look at job boards and they see and they respond to postings, but then they're one of maybe 50, 75, 100 people who are in that stack of applicants. But what you're outlining here, Chris, is in a way that kind of backdoor, because it's a way of getting in front of recruiters or hiring managers well before a posting goes up.
Yeah, I mean, it's really a great thing. I talked to a girl a couple years ago on my podcast who did her entire search through Twitter. She said she was moving. She was a college grad. She wanted to move to Boston. She was living in Indiana, I think it was, and she just used Twitter to do her searches, her job searches. And once she found a number of companies, she started interacting with them on Twitter. Eventually got some interviews over the phone, and then she flew out there for interviews, and eventually got a job. And I thought that was kind of a great take on Twitter job searching overall. So it's a great tool if you know how to use it.
Yeah, and I'm guessing, though you didn't say this, that she was probably one of a handful of people, or maybe just one person who was using Twitter in that way.
Exactly. So that means you can stand out, right? You can rise above your job search competition out there and get noticed by the companies you want to work for through a simple tweet. So it's a great game changer for job seekers, I think.
Okay. Well, you mentioned earlier, Chris, when you were giving tips about how to connect with recruiters via Twitter, that you want to retweet their stuff or hit that heart symbol to show that you're favoriting their tweet. What are other ways that people can be an engaging candidate on Twitter?
Well, you can certainly start to kind of promote yourself as well, in terms of being an expert in the industry you work in. So, if I'm great at marketing, I'm going to go in there and tweet about marketing stuff that's happening, new tools, new ideas, new tactics, sharing those, and become kind of try and become a go-to resource for people who want to work in my industry, right? So just sharing that kind of knowledge and thinking of it as like just a communication channel for yourself in terms of branding yourself for whatever you want to be, whether it's a marketing expert or a software expert or whatever. It's a great chance for you to establish your own personal brand and get the word out there for you. So, again, you can use Twitter tweets. You can use your profile to do that. You can use the little, obviously your images on there, your cover image on Twitter to do all that. If you see mine, if you go to @ChrisRussell, it says, the mad scientist of online recruiting, and I got a little mad scientist cartoon on there. So that's how I brand myself, right? So that's how you can use Twitter for personal branding. So.
Yeah, I like that illustration, and it's very cool. Now, how about when you're ready to move that relationship offline? You've connected with a recruiter, you've been retweeting each other's stuff, you might even have direct messaged each other, but you'd like to have some of the person's time. You're ready for an informational interview or perhaps a coffee. What's the best way to do that?
I would probably, as long as they follow you back on Twitter, send them a direct message and say, hey, would you mind if we connected offline, perhaps through email or your phone number? A simple message like that should be okay. You could even just tweet them as well. Hey, what's the best way to get a hold of you? Something like that would be fine, I think. Again, recruiters aren't there. Recruiters aren't getting blasted every day on Twitter with job seekers, so it won't be unusual for them to see a request like that. So I wouldn't worry too much.
Great. Well, good practical advice. And I think the point you're making about how most recruiters don't hear from people on Twitter just underscores what a big opportunity it can be once you've identified the recruiters or hiring managers you want to connect with. It's not a crowded space, and so there's an opportunity there for job seekers.
Totally.
Yeah. Well, terrific. Well, Chris, tell us what's coming up next for you.
Just busy with my own podcast and things on Career Cloud. We just launched a new big directory of career tools for job hunters. So if you go to tools.careercloud.com, you can see a giant list of job boards across the country for every city and niche out there, as well as a number of online resume builders that we've identified. So we're kind of building this big database of online job search tools that anyone can use to help them maximize their search and get hired faster. So check that out at tools.careercloud.com.
Good. And we'll include that in the show notes. And, of course, your website is careercloud.com. I did have a chance to explore your website before the show, Chris, and I was impressed that you have an easy-to-use directory for every state. So ours is a national audience, and I know wherever our listeners are in the United States, they can click through and find job boards in their state.
Yeah, we have over 1,000 listed there, and most states have anywhere between 5 to 15 different job sites you could be looking at. So I always tell people to maximize your search and sign up for all the ones that are relevant to you.
Good. Well, thank you, Chris, for coming on the show today, and it's been a pleasure to have you.
My pleasure. Thanks, Mac.
We're back in the Maxlist studio with Jenna and Ben. Tell me, you two, what are some of the most important points you heard Chris make?
Well, first, I just wanted to say when you guys were talking about hashtags, it struck me what a cultural monolith Twitter has become, right? Because we no longer call that little sign the number sign or the pound sign. Ask any teenager and they're like, oh, that's the hashtag sign. And it's just that's taken over. And I wonder if someday in the future when you call an automated voicemail system, it'll say press #2 to talk to an operator instead of the pound sign. Sorry, digression there.
That's a good cultural milestone
It
because
is.
I think Twitter celebrated its 10th anniversary perhaps last year. I think it started in 06 or 07.
And the number of products and advertisements and just everything you see that have a hashtag on them with the intention or the hope that you're going to go on Twitter and write about it, it's everywhere. So it definitely should be part of the job search process as well. And I really liked Chris's roadmap for how you progress on Twitter, from creating an account to starting to follow someone to participating in a conversation with people. And I think that's the real fun part of Twitter, actually, is that you get access to people in a way that you wouldn't get access to them any other way, and you get access to the conversations they're having as well, and you can contribute positively to those conversations. So I know I've never used Twitter for a job search, but certainly the process he outlines sounds like it resonates with what I know is true about Twitter.
Yeah, good point. Jenna, what are your thoughts?
I also liked his tips on Twitter, and working on the Hack the Hidden Job Market online course. I've been working on finding out all those hashtags that people use. So we made a download of the top hashtags for every state. And then we're also talking a lot about industry specific hashtags. And Chris touched on that, a lot of those earlier. And it just seems like it's just a really easy tool to see what's out there, especially for your region, and just get a pulse on what's happening in your communities of industry or state economy and what your opportunities are. So I thought you did a really good job, as Ben said, about breaking it down into like actionable steps.
Yeah, I like Chris's focus on just the nuts and bolts of how to use Twitter. But I was also impressed too how he showed a way to address one of the biggest frustrations all three of us hear from job seekers, which is, how do I get to the front of the line? How do I get in front of a hiring manager or a headhunter? And most people are try to communicate with hiring managers by applying for a job. But what Chris shared with us today was a way to use Twitter, a medium that isn't all that popular for job hunting, according to what he's telling us. And so here's a kind of back door into the hiring process if you use it strategically and thoughtfully, and you do the homework. And I think that's very powerful.
Yeah, it's a way to get known before you even send in your application, which is huge because once that application hits the desk, like the employer spends 2 minutes looking at it before they make their initial decision. And so if they recognize your name, you have that huge leg up there.
Well, thank you, Jenna and Ben, and thank you, our listeners, for joining us today. If you like what you hear, please sign up for our free weekly newsletter. In each issue, we give you the key points of that week's show. We also include links to all the resources mentioned, and you get a transcript of the full episode. If you subscribe to the newsletter now, we'll send you our job seeker checklist in one easy-to-use file. We show you all the steps you need to take to find a great job. Get your free newsletter and checklist today. Go to maxlist.org/podcast. Join us next Wednesday when our special guest will be Alyssa Doucette. She'll talk about how women can shatter the glass ceiling. Until next time, thanks for letting us help you find your dream job.